Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the San Martin SN004-G Milsub. This watch is available from watchdives.com for $219 US. You can use the discount code WR4K to get $10 US discount off any watch over $150 US on watchdives.com. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the other items one gets with the piece. So the watch comes in this black plastic pelican style case. I'll show you the interior. As you can see, both halves of the case are lined with two foam panels, which does an excellent job of protecting the watch in shipping from any damage. I think these make a credible alternative to using the default option of a cardboard watch box, and I like pelican style cases because they're very durable and also aesthetically pleasing. With regards to the items, this is the owner's instruction manual, clear concise diagrams. The instructions are in English and it details the operation of the movement use, which is the Seiko NH35A automatic. This is the guarantee card, and one thing I like about Watchdives is they always fill in the date of purchase, the reference number, and they stamp the warranty card to activate it. Usually San Martin watches are covered by a 2-year international warranty, which is very good, but Watchdives succeed that. They add an additional 12 months of warranty, so if you buy the watch from watchdives.com you get a 3-year warranty versus the standard 2-year San Martin warranty. And lastly, one also gets this nylon NATO strap, which is seatbelt weaved to the fabric. Stainless steel hardware throughout. The two stainless steel keepers are fixed into position, stitched either side, no loose stitches. Nice heavy gauge to the 316L grade stainless steel buckle and tang. No sharp edges, no burrs, brushed satin finish to the top side, underside and flanks, and beautiful luster. So this is a high grade of NATO strap. No loose stitches to the underside of the keepers, and it really is high quality. I like the seatbelt weave because it's very soft and supple, it doesn't feel stiff, and it's also perfectly smooth against the wrist. It doesn't feel rough and scratchy as per low quality nylon NATO straps, which are made from fabric which is like ballistic nylon. This is seatbelt weave, so therefore it's more finer weaving and therefore soft and supple. With regards to the holes, plenty of holes in the strap to allow for fine-tuning the length. This will fit up to an 8-inch wrist, and good attention to detail because around the holes are welded, so they're not going to fray with regular use. And also the end of the strap is welded, so it's not going to fray when engaging it through the buckle and tang and also the two keepers on regular use. So it's a very well made strap. The edges of the strap aren't welded, they are woven, and again they're not going to fray because of the seatbelt weave. So very soft and supple, very flexible, and it's a thin, comfortable nylon NATO strap. So high grade, good quality, certainly not like the inexpensive NATO straps one sees on AliExpress. Now, the watch should also come with a spring bar tool and a screwdriver for resizing the screw pins in the bracelet, but unfortunately Watchdives have forgotten to include those, so I cannot show them to you in this review. But rest assured, if you purchase the watch from Watchdives, they will include a spring bar tool and a screwdriver. So, with regards to the specifications of the piece, this is the San Martin SN004-G Milsub. We have a 38mm case diameter. Now the thing to note is, although it's a 38mm head of the piece, it actually wears like a 39 because the bezel diameter overhangs the flanks of the case. The bezel is 39, the case is 38. So there's 0.5 mm either side on each flank overhang of the bezel. So 39mm bezel means that it does look and wear like a 39 despite being 38. We have a 46mm lug-to-lug measurement, a thickness of 13.2mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The oyster-style bracelet tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to 16mm at the 2-button push clasp. The 2-button push clasp is signed to a high standard with the San Martin Hex embossed logo, as you can see. Good foam resistance to the 2-button push triggers, and I'm pleased to see the correct decision of using 4 micro adjustment holes. As you'll know from my previous reviews, I'm often critical of brands only having 2 or 3 micro adjustment holes. Credit where credit's due, San Martin have 4, and that means that one can easily fine-tune the length to get the perfect fit on the bracelet. Beautiful luster to the brushed satin finishing to the top side and also the flanks, and we have a contrasting large bevel which is mirror polished to a flawless standard on the sides and also the end. No sharp edges, no sharp points to the corners. This is a very well executed, very well finished clasp. It's one of my favourite clasps on watches, and bear in mind I've reviewed over 300 watches on my channel. This really is an outstanding 2-button push clasp. The interior is solid 316L grade stainless steel, milled clasp, brush satin finish to the top side, underside and flanks, beautiful lustre to the brush satin finishing, and it really is a very well executed milled clasp. It snaps shut with a nice positive click, and I like the firm resistance to the two spring-loaded pushers, so really this is an example to other brands of how to get a clasp correct. With regards to the rest of the specification, we have a double dome sapphire crystal with blue tinted AR coating on the underside. The blue tinted AR coating does an excellent job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the silver mirror polished Milsub hands, and also the silver mirror polished applied indices. So it's a box top hat style double dome crystal, as you can see, which projects above the top edge of the ceramic bezel insert. Absolutely beautiful to look at. The profile of the boxed top hat crystal is just gorgeous. The bezel is very well executed. Now, this is a feature of the Milsub Mariner version of the 004. As you can see, it has 60-minute ticks which are inlaid with paint. On the standard 004 and also the limited edition versions, only the first quarter, the first 15 minutes of the ceramic bezel insert are indexed with minute ticks. So this is clearly meant to be an homage to the 5513 or the 5517 Milsub, and it has very similar 60-minute ticks. And I think San Martin have done an outstanding job of the ceramic bezel inserts. It's engraved to a very high standard, beautiful glossy finish to the ceramic, and also the inlay of the paints in the minute ticks and the Arabic numerals is done to perfection. So the ceramic bezel insert is of course more scratch resistant than using aluminium, which would have given it a more vintage aesthetic, but I think they've made the correct decision by using ceramic. The only change I would like to make is I think they could have used BGW9 in the minute ticks and the Arabic numerals rather than just inlaying it with paint, because it would have been nice to have a fully loomed ceramic bezel insert, but I have to appreciate that at $219 it isn't viable to use BGW9 on a ceramic bezel insert. With regards to the Milsub sword hands, they are correctly proportioned. If you look at the minute hand, it extends all the way to the minute ticks on the chapter ring. The Milsub sword hand on the hour hand is also correctly proportioned. It extends to the applied indices, and the arrowhead tip to the second hand also is long enough to extend to the minute tick. So they deserve credit, because this is something that often low-tier Chinese brands get incorrect. The hands are under proportion, they're undersized, but with this 004 Milsub Mariner, the handset is the correct size. Also, with regards to the colour match tone of the Lume pip, the applied indices and the Milsub hands, we have the same colour tone to the BGW9 in daylight. There's no mismatch, and again this is something that even San Martin have got previously wrong on other models. There was a colour mismatch in the tone of the Superluminova used on the applied indices and the hands, but on this Milsub Mariner version of the 004, the colour tone of the BGW9 perfectly matches, so it really is excellent. I think the dial is very well executed. They've made the correct decision by using a printed white hex versus using the applied silver hex, and also just the right amount of information, because we have automatic and then we have the water resistance rating. 200 meters equals 660 feet at the 6 o'clock position. It's not over branded with unnecessary text or specification. Perfect symmetry to the dial with the absence of a date complication, and I like the white chapter ring because it contrasts very well with the glossy black enamel dial. Now, one of my favourite aspects of this 004 Milsub Mariner is, unlike other 004s such as the limited editions, this doesn't have a matte black dial. This uses a glossy enamel black dial, and I really like the look of the glossy black dial. It looks more classy, it looks like a high-tier piece, like a Rolex Submariner date, for example. And I love the glossy finish to it, and it works very well because it doesn't mean that it's highly reflective, because we have the blue tinted AR coating. But the deep glossy black colour of it is just absolutely beautiful. It looks better than the matte black they use on the other 004s. With regards to the bezel, it's solid 316L grade stainless steel, gear tooth profile to it. And again, they've made the correct decision by using a gear tooth bezel rather than using coin edge or alternatively scalloped bezels as per the 006, for example. The gear tooth bezel has a nice masculine look to it. It looks aggressive, and I like the fact that it looks more contemporary than using a coin edge bezel like the Black Bay 58. I think that this gear tooth bezel is gorgeous. The teeth are brush satin finish on the inner portion, but the actual exterior of the teeth have a mirror polished finish to them. Now, one thing I like about it is on other San Martins that use coin edge bezels, the top edge of the coin edge bezel has sharp points to the teeth. But the actual quality of the finishing on this 004 is higher than on the coin edge finishing bezels I've seen, because it's got a nice chamfer to the edge of the top edge of the bezel. If you look, you can see the chamfer on the top edge, and that means that the gear teeth don't have sharp points to them as per a scalloped bezel, or alternatively a coin edge bezel with sharp points to the teeth. So it's actually very pleasant to use. When one grips it with one's index finger and thumb, it doesn't dig into the skin as per a coin edge bezel or scalloped bezel. The gear tooth profile means it is grippy, but it doesn't dig into the fingers, so I really like it. With regards to the bracelet, female pivoted end links are the correct choice, and they articulate very smoothly. It feels actually very similar to the female pivoted end links on my Tudor Black Bay 58. And I really like the use of female pivoted end links versus male end links. Early versions of the 004 used male end links, and then San Martin responded to criticism and feedback from collectors, and they upgraded the 004's male end links to female pivoted end links, and they've now become standard issue. And they really are excellent because they allow the end link in the bracelet to articulate beneath the case. So if you have a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches, you'll really appreciate this, because it means the end of the oyster style bracelet can articulate and pull snugly to the wrist without a gap underneath the case. The finishing to this case is some of the best case finishing I have ever seen on a San Martin watch, and I've reviewed a plethora of San Martin watches. The brushed satin finishing to the flanks is absolutely flawless, beautiful lustre to it, nice large mirror polished bevel machined to the edge of the case, which marks the transition between the tops of the lugs and the flanks. So the bevels are perfectly symmetrical on all 4 flanks, and they just are absolutely gorgeous. Now, subjectively, I would have preferred if they'd made this Milsub Mariner version of the 004 using the 006 case with pointed crown guards. I think it would have looked closer to the 5513 and the 5517 Milsub had they used the 006 case, which is one of my personal favourites. But however, I understand why they used this 004 case without the crown guards, and it does still look very nice. The crown is low profile. It's rather like a Rolex big crown used on the 6538 Submariner. I like the low profile to it. Solid 316L grade stainless steel. They've made the correct decision by using the San Martin hex rather than the abhorrent S, which looks like a US dollar symbol. And it's also nicely finished because it has a coin edge finish to it, but that actually complements the large gear tooth profile to the bezel. So I like the profile of it. I like its low profile because when one bends the hand and wrist, the crown doesn't dig into the back of the hand. It's low profile enough, and I think it works very well with the no crown guards flanked to the case. So let's test the screw down crown execution. Absolutely silky smooth, 10 out of 10. This is perfection personified. It really is incredible. It's one of the best screw down crowns I've experienced on a San Martin watch. They've made the correct decision by using the NH35 in this, because one thing I dislike about the PT5000 San Martins is the screw down crown never feels smooth on a PT5000. There's always resistance, both unscrewing it and screwing it back down. The PT5000 is very spring loaded and there is a lot of resistance in the gears. With an NH35A, it is always silky smooth, unscrewing it and screwing it back down. So, as this is a 35A versus the 38, it does have a phantom date setting position. Pulling it out to the first click position is the phantom date setting position. And rotating the crown, one can feel the quick set complication because the date wheel is present beneath the dial. I would have preferred had they used the 38 without the date complication, because that would delete the phantom date setting position. It would only have one click on the crown. But however, the 35A is very reliable. It's a well-proven workhorse movement, so it is a good choice. I personally don't mind if a San Martin uses the YN55A or the NH35A because they are equal quality, but I do like the NH35A in terms of the operation of the crown. So, in the first position, it's the manual wind position, and one can manually wind the 35A to its maximum 40-hour power reserve. One can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up. It feels very smooth to manually wind. One can feel the resistance gradually building up. This is something I much prefer about the 35A versus the PT5000. PT5000 movements are always unpleasant to manually wind. They feel gritty, and the tension in the mainspring feels like it has too much resistance. There's a lot of friction in the gearing. They're just not a pleasant movement to manually wind. With the NH35A, they feel far more smooth, and although one can feel the tension, it feels like it builds up smoother and the gearing has lower friction. So it's an absolute pleasure to manually wind the 35A. Pulling it out to the final click position is the time setting position, and if you look at the arrowhead tip to the second hand, you can see it's now stopped dead. It's possible to set the time precisely to the second because the 35A has hacking. Absolutely silky smooth. One thing I like about the 35A versus other movements such as the Miyota caliber 8215 is with the 8215 there is back play. For example, when one rotates the crown clockwise or anti-clockwise, there isn't an immediate response with the 8215. The minute hand doesn't move immediately. There is a little bit of back play. But with the 35A, one gets an immediate response. When I rotate the crown clockwise and anti-clockwise, the minute hand immediately moves. No back play, clockwise and anti-clockwise. It feels silky smooth. It feels smoother than a PT5000. And of course, it's a higher grade of movement than the 8215. I just would have preferred the 38 to delete the date complication. But it is a pleasure to set the time. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and that restarts the movement. So let's test screwing it back down. Immediate thread pickup. This is outstanding screw down crown execution. Silky smooth. Perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. The screw down crown provides an effective hermetic seal to 200 meters, which is strong specification. This is perfect. They cannot improve upon this screw down crown, one of the greatest screw down crowns San Martin have ever made. Now, with regards to the bezel, let's test the bezel execution. Now, this may come as a surprise to you. The one negative of this watch is the bezel execution. There is no lateral side-to-side play and there is no back play. So the bezel works very well. But however, for some reason, San Martin have elected to use a 90-click unidirectional bezel rather than a 60 or 120 click. I would prefer if this Milsub Mariner had a 60 or 120 click bezel. Now, the 90-click bezel does have nice, loud, audible clicks. It sounds very good. It feels very good because we have that chamfer on the top edge of the gear tooth bezel, so it doesn't dig into the index finger and thumb. Nice, loud, audible clicks. It feels even all the way through the 360 degrees of rotation. The resistance feels lighter than a Steinhardt Ocean 139, which has a very firm bezel. It feels similar to a Seiko 5KX bezel, or alternatively a SKX 007. Or a Seiko Turtle. That's the kind of resistance. Not too heavy, not too light. So I really like the resistance. I like the loud audible clicks. But it's just a curiosity why they chose a 90-click bezel. Now, the 90-click bezel is smoother than a 60-click. With a 60-click bezel, as used on my Black Bay 58, for example, each of the clicks is very heavy. And one can feel the mechanism because there is a larger gap between each of the 60 clicks. With a 120-click bezel, as per Rolex Submariner, the clicks are very fine, and I actually dislike the Submariner bezel action because I think the clicks are too fine, but it does feel very smooth. 90 really is a compromise between a 60-click heavy bezel action and a lighter 120-click, but I really think they should have used 120 clicks. And although it does sound nice and it does feel nice, no back play, no lateral side-to-side play. Let's just check the alignment. Perfect. So the Lume pip and triangle perfectly aligns with the 12 o'clock index and the 12 o'clock minute tick on the chapter ring. 10 out of 10 bezel execution. It's just a shame that they use 90. Now, I don't know what the reason for that is. That is a question only Lau Jiaming, the owner of San Martin, can answer. Right, so I'll show you the case back. Sterile case back, which looks very similar to a Rolex case back, or alternatively a Tudor case back. Finished very well. It's a bubble back case back. We have coinage finishing to the circumference. Concentric CNC lathe tool machining to it, no sharp edges, no burrs, and the coinage finishing is absolutely perfect. Very comfortable to wear with a flat centre section to it, and it's beautiful the way the concentric CNC lathe tool machining catches the light. So very well finished, relatively low profile, bearing in mind it uses the NH35A. Now, the female pivoted end links are a good tight fit to the head of the piece. The underside to the head of the piece is brushed satin finished to a high standard. No sharp edges to the underside of the flanks. So the case back and the underside to the head of the piece are outstanding. Right, so I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, I haven't sized the bracelet. I've simply taken the watch out of the watch box. And as you can see, it fits my 8-inch wrist perfectly. But however, As you'll know from my previous reviews, I like to size my bracelets loose so that I can always fit an index finger underneath the bracelet and clasp at all times. I would prefer an additional link. This has 12 full links, 6 on one side, 6 on the other. For comfort, I would like to see an extra link and give it 13 links as per the Tudor Black Bay 58 and of course the Rolex Submariner date. But it does have enough to fit an 8-inch wrist, as you can see. But bear in mind, I have got the bracelet on position 4, so the longest possible extension, position 4 of the 4 micro adjustments. Now, if you look at the fit, you can see this is perfection personified. 38mm head of the piece, but it actually looks like a 39 due to the 39mm bezel. So there's 0.5 millimeter either side over the flanks on the diameter of the bezel, and it does wear like a 39 despite being 38. Now the 46 lug to lug is slightly undersized. It will fit 6 to 7 inch wrists very well. I consider 48 to be the sweet spot. 46 is 2 millimeters shorter than perfection, but however I can understand why they've used a 46 lug to lug on a 38mm head of the piece, because the proportions are very well balanced. Nice curved undercut to the case. That means one doesn't get an abhorrent gap as per the Steinhardt Ocean 139. So the lugs curve around the wrist very well. And as I've detailed, the female pivoted end links give an enhanced fit over the early versions of the SN004-G, which used male end links. As you can see, the articulation of the end links is perfect. So proportions are correct. They've made the correct decision by using 20 down to 16. That is the perfect taper. And it's just an absolutely beautiful piece to look at. Blue tinted AR coating does an outstanding job. Personally, I prefer clear AR coating. I think blue tinted AR coating works well with blue dial watches. When one has a black enamel dial, which is glossy, I think clear AR coating is better. But this is subjective. Some collectors like the blue tint of blue AR coating. Does a very good job of reducing the glare of the silver mirror polished Milsub hands, the glossy enamel dial and the silver mirror polished indices. So but the proportions are excellent. It's only 13.2 tall, so this will easily slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. Comfortable to wear, 143 grams with all the links in the oyster style bracelet. The clasp wraps around the wrist very well, very comfortable. Just an absolutely gorgeous piece to look at. This is one of the best looking San Martin watches ever made. I think it's just fantastic. Right, so let's do a lume test and we'll see how the lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. This is clearly 5 to 6 layers of BGW9 Super Lume Nova. I'm really pleased to see San Martin haven't used the cost-cutting measure of only using 3 to 4 layers of BGW9. This is definitely 5 to 6 on the applied indices and also the Milsub sword hands. The colour tone match of the BGW9 on the Lume pip, on the ceramic bezel insert, the applied indices and the Milsub sword hands is perfect. The blue tone is the same on the Lume pip, the dial and the hands. Now as you can see, they've done an outstanding job of fully luming the Milsub sword hands. Beautiful blue tone to the BGW9. This clearly is top grade Super Lume Nova, and really there's no discernible difference between the quality of this lume and the Super Lume Nova used on my Tudor Black Bay 58, a Rolex Submariner date, or Seiko Lumebrite. Rolex Chromalite and Seiko Lumebrite really are the very best Super Lume Novas used in the watchmaking industry, and I think San Martin are using equal quality lume to Chromalite and Lumebrite respectively, because if you look at this, it's glowing incredibly brightly and it will continue to glow for a long length of time. It's not fading as per 3 to 4 layers or if it were using Luminova. BGW9 is the correct choice. Personally, I would have preferred if they'd used C3 Super Lume Nova because I like the green tone of C3, but I also like BGW9, which is blue, and in this case I think BGW9 was a good choice because as you can see it's just gorgeous to look at. So the performance is 10 out of 10, it cannot be improved upon. 5 to 6 layers is outstanding. The proportion of the applied indices and the proportion of the Milsub hands are just right. Right, so let's discuss the movement used. You'll all be familiar with the Seiko NH35A Automatic. It's a reliable, well-proven workhorse movement. Now, the NH35A is made by Seiko in 2 plants in Japan and also Malaysia. This movement that San Martin are using is the Malaysian-made version. There is no difference in the quality control of the Malaysian and the Japanese versions of the NH35A. They are identical build quality, materials, quality control. So I have no reservations about them using the Malaysian version of the NH35A. I regard it equal quality to an Epson caliber YN55A, but it's a level above the 8215. Now, in terms of accuracy, it's -20 to +40 seconds per day, so a rather wide accuracy range. However, I'm pleased to report that this one is running at 0 seconds per day accuracy, which is incredible for an NH35A. Now, San Martin deserve credit for this because typically the NH35A runs at ±10 seconds per day. It's nothing unusual to regulate an NH35A to ±10, although the stated accuracy is -20 to +40. This one, when fully wound to 40 hours, is running consistently at 0 seconds per day within chronometer grade accuracy. So San Martin have done an excellent job of regulating it. It has 24 joules, it runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. No negatives to the 35A whatsoever. I like the reliability of it, I like the smoothness in terms of hand winding and also when setting the time, clockwise and anti-clockwise. There's no backplay in it as per an 8215. I just would have preferred had they used the 38 because that would have deleted the phantom date setting position, but this is a minor criticism because the quality of the 35A is equal to the YN55A, and I really wouldn't have minded either in this piece. I am pleased that they've used the 35A versus the PT5000. Now, they could have made it thinner than 13.2. They could have reduced the thickness of the case back had they used the PT5000, because the PT5000 is a lower profile movement than the 35A. But the PT5000 isn't as reliable as the 35A, so I think they've made the correct choice. The other benefit of using the 35A versus the PT5000 is it reduces the production cost because the 35A is less expensive. The wholesale price per piece is lower than the PT5000's wholesale price per piece. So it means that San Martin and Watch Dives can retail this piece at $219 with the 35A. If it had the PT5000, it would be in excess of $250. So, correct choice. I like the movement. The 35A is well proven. So, lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch will meet 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So this is $219. Now you can use the discount code WR4K to get $10 off that, which will reduce it to $209. So I'm going to evaluate it based upon $209. This cannot be beaten for $209. It is one of the greatest San Martin watches ever made. Everything about it is finished to perfection. The quality of the double dome sapphire crystal with AR coating, the ceramic bezel inset with the 60-minute ticks, the bezel finishing, the crown finishing with a hex, the brush satin finishing has a beautiful luster to it. Quality of the bracelet is outstanding, beautiful luster to it, flawless mirror polishing to the flanks, screw pins, 4 micro adjustment holes. There are no negatives to this whatsoever. If I had to be critical about it, I would just say the phantom date setting position, because they've used the 35A versus the 38, as I've detailed. Really, the only negative to this watch, being critical, is the use of a 90-click bezel versus 60 or 120. So I would like to see them update the bezel to either a 60 or a 120-click unidirectional bezel. But however, no lateral side-side play, no back play, perfect alignment. So the 90-click bezel is 10 out of 10. It does sound good, it feels good, and it's an absolute pleasure to grip the gear tooth profile with a large chamfer on it. So this is better than a coin edge bezel or a scalloped bezel as per the 006. 10 out of 10 watch, quality control, build quality, finishing are all outstanding. This is one of the greatest San Martins. I'm going to declare it a champagne watch for lemonade money. I like this watch so much, in fact, I have decided to add it to my own personal collection, and that is one of the highest compliments I can pay a watch. So I highly recommend it to you for consideration. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the San Martin SN004-G Milsub Mariner. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.